Welcome everybody to the post-game lobby where I'm joined by Deficio and Unicorns of Love coach Sheepy. Welcome, Sheepy. Glad to have you after a win instead of a loss. Feeling good after that one?
Yeah, well, I'm happy we won, of course, because we also had like 2 losses in a row. So now winning feels good, but I think the way could have been cleaner. But yeah, in the end, happy that we won.
Well, one team that has had a harder series than you, my friend, is Ninjas in Pajamas, but they did find their first series win today.
And it was clean.
They did it.
Game 2 was clean, man. I was actually, so game 1, obviously this happened, the Nexus rush. There was
Every time I see this, by the way, I get the G2 flashback, of us like, oh, if I just did one more auto attack,
how many LCS games we've casted where this happened, where the team almost managed to kill the Nexus? One of his first games was...
Yeah, I got 3 last year. I think I've gotten 1 this year.
Yeah,
we're definitely on a roll.
At least there's one of Unicorns of Love in a split.
Of course, for sure, every split. Game 2, however, I think NIP looked super good, man. Great early game from Shook. Hiku got the early kills, even won the 2v2 lane with the Jhin, and they actually managed to win every single team fight right after. So, really good game 2 from NIP. Ooh, disaster for Rocket.
Yeah, definitely not where Rocket wants to be. Of course, NIP not 100% out of contention, we do have to say. But with Rocket losing, it does now lock G2 into playoffs. So G2 are really happy that NIP found a win.
I'm sure they were very nervous about losing that playoff spot as well.
Probably. I mean, shaking in their boots, right? However, NIP, yes, praise them. Now I want to head to the opposite side. Back to you in your series against Mysterious Monkeys. You won, but it did not feel like the most confident of wins. You kind of alluded to it earlier. It's good that you guys found that win after a 2 series losing streak. But what's next when it comes to Unicorns of Love in terms of improvement and learning from this series?
I think generally we will just keep going with what we kind of had been doing after Rift Royals, which was like just keep practicing, figuring out the meta, play like new compositions from our end, like with the Talon flanking the backline. And I think generally there's a lot of stuff that we approach correctly. I think we're playing the map well, and we kind of know what we want to do, but we always get sidetracked. Like we just keep doing random stuff.
There's one guy calling, oh, I'm killing this guy over here, and then suddenly...
To be fair, once or twice through that looked pretty good. The Tom Kench killing the Vladimir very slowly, I think, was the satisfying thing to watch.
But that's like a really good example of the kind of randomness factor, and we're trying to getting down the plays which are looking like random and bad, and but overall the macro play was good there because he is fighting in a 1v1 against Vladimir, and Tom Kench is ultimating, so it's 2 versus 1, and he has exhaust, so it should be fine, but we need to execute it better, and the idea needs to come earlier. So yeah, we'll just push as hard as we can for playoffs.
So for a team that now for basically 2 years have been having a bit of this random factor, with Hylissang and Vizichachi being in the lineup and you as a coach since the start, how do you now practice reducing that random factor? Like, are you standing behind them in scrims, and if they make a random call, you kind of go like, no. slow macro.
That's why is it every time we have a coach on? Probably Sheepy, you're just like, do you beat your players?
Yes.
Do you just hit them every time?
Just make the sound behind him. Like,
this is nowadays entertainment. He's pushing us,
Hey, okay, so how do you actually like kind of reduce the random factor?
I think the leash is very loose in like the Unicorns of Love, not in terms of,
right.
But I mean, what they can do. And the nice thing is all of them are playing like daily basis champions and figuring new stuff out. So we can always take something that we're doing that looks kind of random and try to implement it. And I think that's the edge that can take you over other teams. So a lot of stuff that looks random to us or looks random to other people, we can implement, and then actually it gives us the edge. Like, let's say we play against SKT and we're playing like good macro and whatnot, and this is like the 10 plays we have left, like that you can always rely on. We have like 20. But getting, always being so focused on what of those 20 plays you should do is extremely difficult. If you have only like 1 or 2 that you can do, it's very easy to play the map, and then it can look easier. But yeah, so in terms of us improving, it's really difficult. I think everyone has like, goes a little bit in the different direction, and that we force them all in the same way. But I think it also makes for a really great place that, only our team can deliver. And I think that's also something fans realize. So
And I think it's exciting. I think it's really exciting. And sometimes you guys do pull off these plays that, for many people on paper, look insane, something that you've probably practiced and rehearsed. But at the same time, as you mentioned earlier, there's also some of those plays that fall apart. And I'm wondering, how do you confidently decide that, like, this crazy thing needs to be added to our playbook. Because like SKT are a wonderful team, right? I think that's a good example. I find it hard to believe that SKT, theoretically, maybe not right now, but in the past, the greatest team in the world isn't also going to have, like, hasn't already considered something this, you know, out there and crazy and hasn't implemented in their style. What makes these plays good and what makes them unique to Unicorns of Love? Like, what is it about your team that makes it so that another team can't just copy this style and implement it into their own team?
I think we're just too much over the place. I mean, it sounds like a bad thing, but we have really explored like in-depth stuff where other people would probably not look for. I think that SKT and overall Korea seems really strong. I mean, SKT right now also seems to be like kind of falling apart, you know, and having some losses there. I mean, I think they're qualified now still.
I mean, they're fairly safe, but they haven't like locked in, you know, world spot yet.
Yeah, but for example, that's a really good example. Like they seem to be the #1 team always and ever, and now they went in some losses. So I think that the main strength of Korea is that the macro game, like understanding what to do on the map right now, is good. They see that and they analyze that faster than we do because they just have like all this practice coming in and they're very, very strict towards that.
Yeah.
And I think that's maybe very scary because that's usually the thing that just wins you games.
And admittedly, I sidetracked us a little bit. I was mostly using that as a as a theoretical example, but good to kind of touch briefly on the struggles of SKT and Korea. But bringing it back to Europe, I'm curious. You've mentioned some of the inconsistencies, and we on the broadcast have mentioned some of them too, and I want to see how those line up. We see, obviously, Hylissang have games like he did last game on the Tahm Kench where he destroys people, and the Tahm Kench is executed beautifully. And then we also have these games on the other side where he is hyper-aggressive. Is this just the risk of Hylissang as a player, is that he's going to, some games, make those aggressive plays and they're going to be brilliant and they're going to win you the game? Is it that coin flip, or is this, or are some of those more risky plays that backfire, is that an example of some of the things that you're trying to cut out, to cut back on?
I like to coach that way more than the other way around. Let's say you have a very timid player that you need to try to build up. That's usually a little bit harder than just having like a diamond that you need to like, or like a stone, and I don't know, like that.
Here's a stone you throw them at people.
No, stop throwing things at people. Not a diamond you need to polish, but a play something you need to build
and I think
up.
Hilly has like so many tendencies that are extremely interesting to see and that like can flourish really well if you like take the time for that. But he is just going like a lot of places, and I think now he's learning how to use that in a right way, and he's finding like picks that other people would not, and he has like this kind of confidence. And that's so exciting to coach because you can just push with a lot of energy and just with everybody and learn insane amount other than everyone is like, oh yeah, maybe I could have done this here or something. Like, it's way faster, it's way more effective, and it's way more fun the way. And so I think if everyone is like, you know, it's difficult to coach, but I think it's like very giving and it's very fun.
I mean, I just think also to the point you were trying to make earlier about, you know, the macro teams and so on, or like how other teams approach macro compared to maybe Unicorns. Like a lot of it for me comes down to discipline in a way. I think one of the big strengths of a lot of the top Korean teams is if they have a check, like a book of saying like there are 5 steps we need to do before we can get deep vision, you know, push out the lane, then move in as 2 or 3 guys at the same time, spot the enemy, all these kind of things, they will follow that really well. I think a lot of European teams are trying to do the same, but it's difficult to not sometimes forget a little step or 2 in there. I think Unicorns actually one of the reasons you guys can do this kind of play style, because Hylissang is the kind of player as well who is super aggressive. Like, while there's still some discipline, it's not the same kind. It feels to me like it can sometimes be like there are 5 steps in front of us. Right now, Hylissang says, I don't care about those 5 steps because I'm seeing a guy who's out of position, so I'm going to call this guy needs to die right now. And then you skip the 5 steps and you make that play, which surprises a lot of teams. Take H2K as an example. They like to try and follow the steps. So they're looking, being like, okay, Unicorns will push the lane now. Then they will get vision. Oh, wait, Hylissang is over there killing our AD carry. What has happened? You know, and you get these really random, aggressive moves that can be hard to react to because you're not practicing against that style on stage very often.
Shiba, do you think that's a fair characterization of some of the way that you guys like to play a game, that you're aware often of these 5 steps, but you're willing to just throw them aside if you see an opportunity?
Yes, and that's like really the most honest word for our team is we have really this balance or like perfect imbalance between doing the steps. Like there is something like in chess as well, you know, where you are like playing around this area right now is very beneficial. Like, why would you move this if you are like under attack here? And we're starting to learn, like, always look what makes the most sense. You know, like there's 50 minions top lane, then top lane has like an importance, and we need to realize this. But we're getting like the extra on top as well, like which is we're not just doing the 5 steps, but every time we're doing the 5 steps, we're looking like for 10 other things as well. So I think it's a little bit scary to perfect, but I think it always makes for having an advantage in some ways. And I think this is the strength of Unicorns of Love, where if we're having like a really good run and like everyone's very focused, we are a team that is like very hard to gouge and to approach. So I think if people are playing against us, they feel that as well, that they have to really be careful. And I think also that our decision making is really good mid to late game. I mean, the Nashor this time was like very, very, very bad example for that.
Bold strategy.
We call it bold strategy. But I mean, afterwards you see as well, we go like 6-7K behind, and then we're still winning games. And I think that is because people, you know, are extremely active and are extremely good on the map.
Do you think, I'm going to ask this straight away, like, do you think it's a bad thing that European teams, despite being 6-7K gold ahead, are still losing team fights to Unicorns of Love? Is this because these teams are just not as good as maybe they should be? Or is it just because you guys are that much better playing team fights?
I think it's like, we're always picking champions that can always win in late game if you play correctly. So this is something we're doing really well. And I think that other teams are sometimes giving us a small opening and they think that we're not going to take it, but we're going to take it. And we have people that are looking out for those. Like Hilly, if he has Rakan and you make a misstep, he will just flash ultimate W. And then either way we win or we lose, and most likely we're gonna have a good fight because he knows when to engage.
Right.
I'm curious, is this something that you think that European teams, let's say some of them, let's say for instance Mysterious Monkeys, do you think that they leave those same openings against other teams and other teams aren't 100% confident in exploiting and going all in on that small opening? Or is it that just sometimes, is it just the games that you're looking at are the games where Unicorns of Love is involved? Like let's say Fnatic plays G2, Fnatic is cleanly snowballing, G2 maybe does have an opportunity to turn this back, but they don't take it because they don't have the same level of gusto, of confidence that the Unicorns of Love might have.
I think so, because Fnatic's playstyle a bit ago was a little bit more like our playstyle, where they've been looking like very actively to snowball on with tactics that are not conventional. Like usually you group mid-side, you get control and so on. But Fnatic went a lot over side waves and like trying to assassinate people and standing in Fnatic bushes, and you know that was super interesting. And now they favor more the style of doing that over mid lane, which is more central. So I think that's a good decision for them winning-wise. You know, like it should pay off in the long run. However, I think they should implement both and make their style even stronger. I think abandoning like something that has some kind of that worked also in some way is not a good idea. It just makes you like weaker. So I honestly believe right now also Europe is extremely interesting. For example, against Mysterious Monkeys, we had so much time to calculate that it felt like very comfortable. But the top teams like Fnatic, G2 are like always pushing you to make a decision, and that is way, way harder because we're looking at like 10 places and 5 from them are like easy to calculate. Like the game is like calculating all the time. But if the team just keeps forcing you, then you know there's really high chance that you're gonna fail at some point. So against those teams, we have way harder time. Against MM, for example, the best example was we had Nashor, and we took like 3 minutes or 4 minutes to get a bot lane second tier turret. That should have been faster, but they didn't even punish, so we could like just keep on going.
And I'm just really curious to clarify again. So do you feel like the difference between the bottom and the top teams is not that these opportunities don't exist, but just the window to take advantage of them is so much smaller?
And I think that the top teams are just looking at the right places. I think the bottom tier teams are not even aware of like where's an opening possibly coming up. And I think that the top tier teams are really looking out for, okay, they pushed mid lane, they're going top side now, like on the entire way they had like vision here, and they make like very intricate plans that follow what the enemy team should be doing, and then you see like, you know, fights according to this. But for example, when we studied MM, there was like Dreams was getting caught a lot in positions where he shouldn't have been because there was no relevance to be there, and you see that a lot in bottom tier teams where it's basically fighting for nothing. And I think this is also where, you know, where a game can get boring if you're just constantly contesting just for the case of fighting, which we did a lot in the past.
I mean, a lot of teams in Europe, but also around the world, and something I try and follow as well a little bit is you look at the risk and the reward whenever you make a play. And obviously there's the low risk plays that gives you a small reward. Like those are not always too relevant, but then there's the medium risk and the high risk plays, and you got to look at what reward you're getting. And I feel like a lot of top teams, are really good at making sure whenever they make a play, it's never a high-risk play they are making. They always try and turn it into a low to medium risk with still a great reward in it. So an example of that is, let's say you want to set up a tower dive against the enemy bottom lane. Well, you don't really want to do that if the enemy top laner has TP ready as well, enemy team has a Galio mid lane or something like that. So tower diving is extremely high risk. The reward is still awesome. You get kills, you get tower. Great, but the risk is very high. So they wait, okay, hey, we just forced this guy to use teleport. Galio's ulti is on cooldown. Now the risk is no longer high, now it's actually very low. And they then go for the play to get the same reward. And these kind of setups from the top teams, I feel like they are really good at doing that. And a lot of the bottom teams are not able to kind of put themselves in the same situation, so they end up coin flipping a lot. Where they're like 50-50 on the play. They say, let's go for this dive. Don't care about the globals. All in. Yeah. I think unicorns of love like to coin flip too, and then try and turn it into their favor by being fast and being the first one to react. And that's some of the times reason we get inconsistent games from some of these teams where they look great one day and then the next day it falls apart a little bit because the plays didn't actually work, the 50-50 plays.
Yeah, and just to step onto this, I mean, maybe that's like really interesting to also see in the future, but exactly the way League of Legends is working right now is the enemy and you are both like having a range of possibilities. Yes. You can do like go bot lane, go mid lane, go top lane. Like people can go 5 people top. You can legit do this. This is like something that needs to be considered. But is it good? Like generally speaking, no. But that needs to be something that's like discussed and has been discussed in our team as well and every team as well. So you're basically having like all these options, and I think that the top teams are just so good at selecting the decisions you want to force the enemy into. Like, do you want to defend bot lane? All right, if you do this, then we push mid lane first again. We can get vision bot side.
Yep.
And you're slowly aggravating lead. And if it's a bad team, then they will just do constantly, like from the 2 choices, they have the worst one. And so let's say they don't defend bot lane, you just get bot lane turret for free. A good team would like stall that out longer. And yeah, I think that's like the strength, and that's also what most analysts has been saying about like Korean teams. They are just really good at stopping snowballs because they keep doing the right decisions. And they're really good at snowballing because they know exactly what are the good decisions.
Definitely the fair case. Well, we've been talking a lot about top teams, so it's time to turn our attention elsewhere now. Coming into the split, we had some very interesting power rankings. I'd say very different than they are now. So we're going to take a chance to officially put out some of those power rankings. We're going to take a chance to make our own power rankings so we can bring up the standings. The first thing that we're going to look at is based on the current standings, if we did not have a 2-group system, we'll see exactly where each of these teams would be ranked. You can see it right now. Fnatic, H2K, G2 Esports, of course, win match differential is counted in there. And I want to take a chance to go through each of these teams and talk about which ones we feel are correct, where we think teams should be placed. I think the easiest one for me, honestly, starting at first place, is there thoughts on Fnatic? Are they the best team right now in Europe?
Right now, Fnatic, they are the best team in Europe. I think at the moment, while they did abandon the style they played before Rift Rivals, the new 80 carry picks, like the standard 80 carry picks for Reckless, has actually given Fnatic a much stronger 2v2 bottom lane, which is something they can utilize effectively. And I think Caps is actually playing extremely well at the moment. So the current meta seems to be okay for Fnatic, and they still look very good.
Sheepy, would you agree? Fnatic right now, we don't have to talk about by how many margins, but would you say they are the #1 team in Europe?
I mean, deservedly so, because they have just like the most wins. They have been most consistent. They've been beating like all the teams. So I think it's fair to put Fnatic on the top. And unless other teams show up and beat them, straight up, I think they are comfortably sitting there at the top.
All right, well, that was the easy one. It gets progressively harder from here, I think it's safe to say. Now, H2K is currently ranked above G2 based on game differential here, but who do we think is the second best team in Europe right now? Any takers?
I think G2 Esports are the second best team in Europe. They just played against H2K like a week ago, won that series. I think also G2 Esports are looking closer to the form they had last split, not exactly at the MSI peak just yet, but I think the meta is great for them with Trick playing a lot of tanks. And I also think right now that if H2K and G2 Esports played each other, I think G2 Esports will have at least a slight edge over H2K in different elements of the game. So I think they are the second best team in Europe, and they're the only ones who can challenge Fnatic right now.
All right, do you think that's fair to say, Sheepy? Do you think G2 coming back into form? We know that they're looking stronger. They're definitely winning a lot more games, but second place where you feel like they belong? Is there another team that you think may be more deserving of second best in Europe?
I think that G2 right now has like this upward drift. I think so too, that the Trick is doing more now in the jungle, having like a little bit more comfortable picks. And I think that G2 generally in the beginning of the split is the only reason we would even doubt them. Like if you would just cut that off, then I think G2 is looking kind of like usual. And yeah, I think the only downside for G2 is that they need to still play more games and like show more consistency, because they have been looking bad in the beginning of the split, and you can't just like put that away. So I think that's right now deservedly so they're on the second spot, but I would really love to see more games from them, and just to see, you know, how they fare, you know, over a longer period of time. And yeah, I think that's still very, very fair.
All right, now the next 4 teams I think are it's safe to say H2K, Unicorns of Love, Splyce, Misfits. This is much more difficult than I think the vast majority. So if you'll amuse me, I'd like to jump to the bottom of the table, and I want to focus our main attention at the middle to round things out. So I want to talk about bottom 4. Is there anything between Vitality, Roccat, Mysterious Monkeys, Ninjas in Pajamas, based on what we've seen this week, based on what we've seen in the past? Does this look out of order to you? Is it Vitality 6, Roccat 7, or rather Vitality 7, Roccat 8, Mysterious Monkeys 9, Ninjas in Pajamas 10?
Is Monkeys better than Roccat right now?
I'm not sure. We just played against them, right? I mean, they took a game of Unicorns of Lost, so...
First place! Straight away.
But Rocket took 2, so I, you know... I think it's a little bit hard. I think that, sadly, NIP has always been like losing like 1 to 10 is their record right now, I think.
Yeah.
They have been consistently winning early games, though, even against the top teams. But I'm not sure if that's a sign of a strong team if you win early and then still lose the games. I think we've been even joking about this, you know, that's a little bit unlucky for NIP that they always, you know, lose in the late game. But it's actually nice to see that they are winning early games. So, but they are 110, so it's really, really hard to move them. It's hard to move them up there. Yeah, I think Roccat showed most promise against top teams.
Yeah.
And Mysterious Monkeys is just like between, you know, not as bad as NIP, but Roccat at least took games from top teams, so, you know.
That's fair. I think keeping like this is fair. I actually think there's quite a jump from Vitality to the bottom 3. Some people might even try and make a case for Vitality almost sneaking into top 6, but I think that is difficult to say, because we haven't seen them, you know, destroy Splyce or Misfits Gaming. So I think Vitality is sitting in the correct spot, but they are a step above the 3 guys above them, in my opinion. Oh, sorry, under them, in my opinion.
All right. Looks like some agreement there in terms of the bottom of the table. Now we get to the meat of the discussion. This is my favorite. So this one's going to be tough, I think, to go through. So what I would like, before we start the main discussion, I just want each of you to take a chance, list your third, your fourth, your fifth, and your sixth in your preferred order, and then we can discuss the differences there, because I think we'll get a little too into the nitty-gritty if you guys start to debate on every position, although we will get the chance. So, Sheepy, I'd like to start with you. 3, 4, 5, 6. How do you think it stacks up in Europe right now?
I think that we have not been showing too much consistency, but in scrims we've been performing really well, also against H2K, so I would almost put us on 3rd place. And I think also when we are watching Fnatic and G2, we always feel that there's like opportunities that we could abuse against them. However, we didn't show that like so convincingly yet. I still think that our series, for example, against Fnatic was totally winnable from our end as well. But yeah, you know, props to always to the winner. With H2K, it's really hard to call, because I mean they've been doing better, I guess, and I mean it's a toss-up between those two. I think for Splyce and Misfits, I think they are like deservedly so on those 2 positions. So I would rank Splyce a bit higher, because I don't know, they just look a little bit more consistent, and also from the past, I think they own a little bit more respect than Misfits.
All right, Unicorns 11, 3rd place. You guys have been having, I think, a little bit of a shakier season. I'm curious, what your rankings would you be? Would you agree? Would you put Unicorns 11 the 3rd best team? Who would you put in that slot?
I would put H2K as number 3 right now. The faith is all in H2K at the moment. I actually think they played super well lately. I know you're sitting right next to me.
Where's the faith?
It makes it hard, but at the same time, I think H2K has really shown that the last few weeks they have looked super good. The team fighting is much better in the late game. Also with this meta where you draft a lot of team fighting comps, which seems to really benefit them. And Jankos on tanks is not an issue at all. He's still finding tons of ganks in the early game. So I actually think H2K look very well-rounded right now.
Let's say this. If H2K can find the consistency that they showed in their most recent series, Sheepy, do you think it's fair that they're in the third place, or do you think Unicorns of Love still has that? Because I think the biggest question with H2K has been consistency.
Yeah, I think that's kind of the same for G2. I think if we just like cut off like the weeks, you know, before the last weeks, then I think that they look way stronger than, you know, over the entire split looking. So I think that's why the list right now is really fair, and we're like, you know, we're putting right now how it is. And I think we have also shown some inconsistencies. I mean, the National Throw, you know, and some games just that ends you the games. I mean, we lost also the game, but I mean, against every team, that's like unforgivable. And if that happens in playoffs like twice or like 3 times, you're just out. So we need to really be more consistent with like those major calls. And I think H2K didn't show like this kind of throw, but I think also on the opposite, if we are more consistent with Unicorns of Love, I think we have just shown like more different strengths. And if we can actually tap into that, I think then we can be like one of the strongest teams in Europe. But consistency is really hard to achieve with that playstyle.
To round this out, really to put a cap on this, third, fourth, definitely debatable, Unicorns of Love or H2K. There's arguments to be made there depending on which team can find consistency. But the rest of the list as it stands, we are pretty much in agreement.
I mean, I think the only other thing you could kind of argue for right now, and this is obviously because we don't know how well you guys are doing in scrims, but from pure stage performance the last few weeks, like after Rift Rivals as an example, Splice and Misfits Gaming, I don't think they're very far away from you guys in terms of stage performance. I actually think before this week, when we saw Splice and Misfits Gaming lose, you know, 2-0 in both their series quite convincingly, you could definitely make a case for them actually being higher up in the rankings. And Splice last time they did beat you guys when you guys were actually looking really good. You guys obviously playing each other very soon as well. And if they win that game suddenly and look really good once again, trying to maybe rely a bit more, also rely as much on copy as they did, you know, this week, suddenly I actually think Splice, you can make a case for them being even higher on this list. And Misfits Gaming, sadly to me, are too reliant on just one style and a little too many question marks in terms of their actual execution, especially when they get challenged. I didn't say we should move.
No, don't. He's in their clothes. He's in their clothes. Put him back. Come on.
You
graphics team, I love you.
Whatever, man. You can definitely make the case for it.
All right, so we're gonna let's lock this in. We can say that 3 through 6, incredibly close. I think we can say, regardless of your interpretation, depends on execution, depends on the weeks to come. 1 and 2 feel pretty set, although there is still some arguments for G2 potentially dropping or going up, depending on how they can find their consistency. But overall, I think pretty solid list, pretty solid impressions, especially as we get closer to playoff. Of course, you guys can let us know what you think. Head on over to social media. You know, give us a shout out. Let you know, maybe Deficio's wrong, maybe Sheepy's wrong, maybe I'm wrong for
Deficio's wrong.
Trying to make a list.
I think Drakus is wrong as the host. You know, where's your opinion?
The easiest way.
So I didn't put my name on the list.
Yes.
That's smart,
that's so. Yeah. He's just I put Fnatic in the bottom. Publish it.
All right, thank you very much, gentlemen. Well, we'll soon have the final results as we have 2 weeks left in the summer split with a close race in both groups. The stage is set for an explosive finish. Well, here are the standings, guys. We'll take a chance to look at them. 2 weeks left. Take a chance to see how each of the teams are stacking up. Of course, Group A feels like how it's going to finish to me. Don't get me wrong. I know there's a chance for Rocket. I know there is a chance
They
for
just lost to
Pajamas.
NIP. There's barely a chance for Rocket. Like, I'm just going to say it. Like, they need to find something crazy right now to actually do this. They have to take down teams above them.
But Rocket has shown.
They have done it in the past. I know, but
the win streak.
Exactly. They look so bad against NIP today. Like, I can't actually believe they can consistently take down the teams above them to finish above Misfits Gaming. And Misfits play.
And to be fair to Rocket, we've seen them improve, right? We've seen them make massive improvements. We saw it last split, but that was. They had a week off. They brought in, you know, new mental coach to help out the team.
They got momentum, confidence.
Momentum, confidence, great buzzwords. I feel like we're not going to maybe see the same thing this time around.
Great casting.
Group B, the other one on the opposite side of the coin. Sheepy, I'm curious.
Can we get it back up?
Yeah, one more time. Give us one more through it. Where do you think Unicorns of Love are going to finish? Where do you think Unicorns of Love round up the split? Do you feel confident that you guys can take first place back and get the bye?
It's really, really difficult. I think that more important than this question is how is our performance by the end of the split. That's way more important. Like I'm sure we can like win games 2-1 and then it's like a little bit here and there because our style is just very hard to handle. And I think that if teams are facing us, they are not like, yeah, 100% we're going to beat the Unicorns of Love. So yeah, but I'm way more interested how we're gonna improve, because right now it's just not enough. And I just want to reiterate, like, not just looking like locally here against like G2 and Fnatic and H2K. If we're going to Worlds and we're winning, let's say 3-2 and make it somehow second place and lose like 3-0, and we go to Worlds, I mean that's also you're not very confident into that. So I really want to improve our performance. That's a way bigger question for me, and like way stronger showing. But yes, obviously I think we can make first place, but on the flip side I can also see us like losing 2 games if our performance is like not improving.
I actually want to ask you, because you guys have obviously never made Worlds but been so close multiple times.
Yes, also this is in the back of my head.
That's why I'm just going to say it again. Is this year, or this, let's say the summer split, is that just a failure if you guys do not make Worlds? After making the final in the spring split and sitting as the top team for such a long time in summer split, is it a failure if you don't make Worlds?
Let's say
I would like to say, I would like to put it like not that harsh, because we improved a lot and we did our best and whatnot. But I think that people will take it extremely hard on themselves, because that's really has been a goal from a lot of us, especially for Hilly, Chachi, and me, has been like a big goal for a long, long time. So I think we will see that as a failure, and I think Xerxa and Samox and Exa are very hungry for wins as well. So obviously they will see it as themselves as a failure. And even if you don't do it initially and you say, okay, that's like fine, then over the time where you're sitting home and you're watching Worlds, then it will be like very, very hard on you. But I think that's also a motivating thing. And I can speak from my experience, because that has happened to us, So yeah, but to say it like from my heart, I really, really want to make Worlds. I really want to be a strong performing team, and I really want to improve and take the opportunity.
Yeah, and it's really good to hear that you think that the team needs to make these big improvements moving forward. It's like just great to hear from a top team that even though you are currently contesting to be a top team in Europe, that you are hungry for more as a lineup. Well, fantastic discussion, gentlemen. I want to turn our attention towards next week and the games that are upcoming. There's still so much to be decided, so let's take a look at the upcoming matches. I think we can go right to Unicorns of Love versus Splice, since we have you here, Sheepy. Feels like an opportunity for the team to prove, show that growth, show that improvement.
Yes, and it's really great that we have this match, and I think we have H2K the week after as well. Yeah. So those are really great games to look forward. And also, doesn't matter really the score, but I am expecting that both teams are really looking to like just improve and like show their strongest performance. And when like this is clashing, that's usually making for really great games. And also it means a lot to the people. Like it means really a lot to us to perform well and like play good in those games. So we will really try to improve for this year. So for us, that's the best view I can give. It will be extremely interesting.
I love the fact that Group B right now has 3 teams, or have 3 teams, where effectively everyone can beat each other and everyone can still take first place. Because obviously getting the bye is fantastic. You're locked in semi-final, you're locked in top 4.
You avoid G2.
You avoid G2, you're going to go to Paris. But then also like looking at, the group here, because 3rd place will most likely play G2 in a quarterfinal. So getting that 3rd place compared to playing against Misfits Gaming, like it's quite a big difference. We just had our list with G2 being locked in 2nd without a whole lot of discussion around it. That is a huge difference when it comes to making top 4. So Splice, H2K, Unicorns, like one of those teams will have to face G2 in a quarterfinal, or potentially in the quarterfinal, or Fnatic, if they don't lock in first, which would be unexpected by now. So that is super tough, and it means there's so much to play for in Group B in terms of the seeding.
Yeah, and of course,
the pressure. I just like think about it. Oh my God, yeah, really.
Sheepy, don't crumble under the pressure. We don't just remind you that the pressure is now on.
Not that it's really important, but all of those things.
You want to go to Worlds, top 4.
Yeah, so, okay, we have to do even better.
All right, well, let's divert attention away from the pressure of the EU LCS. Of course, there are a bunch of teams now fighting to come into the EU LCS, and they're going to be playing in the EU Challenger Series playoffs. We're going to see tomorrow Wind and Rain versus Giants, and of course, Sunday, the 6th of August, Schalke versus Team RB. Sheepy, have you gotten the chance to watch any of the Challenger Series? Do you have an impression of any of these teams coming back? Would you like to see Giants or Schalke again in the LCS?
I have not seen too much, because there's just too many competitive and interesting regions right now. I mean, what's going on in Korea is super interesting as well. And since NA beat us, I have to watch the games as well, to just learn from the better region. Yeah, so I have not come around to watch many of the Challenger Series games. I think I just watch, whatever pops up, what somebody sends me. But yeah, I think it's great if some of the professional organizations are coming in, like Schalke, for example, back to LCS. It would also be a really great storyline, you know, first like not being in the LCS, going down, hanging on to their challenger spot, really showing faith, and then coming back. And also the first time they had like an undefeated record and then they dropped out like this. So I would love to you know, restore a bit of faith towards Schalke if they could make it back. But yeah, it's totally up to them. And if they can't make it, then they can't make it. But you know, that would be a great name to have.
Yeah, definitely going to be the case. Well, that was all from us here in Week A. Thank you so much for joining us, and we'll be back on Thursday with more EU LCS action. But you better be turning in tomorrow for that Challenger playoff.
How many viewers do you guys think it is right now?
5,000.
Huh? 5,000. Yeah, not the best match.
Sprattle's able to escape, and second blood will be taken by Sprattle.
Go, Chris! Go, Chris!
Oh,
it's one hit, man.
Oh! Today! That's a flash engage from Prophet, that great shockwave, it's a shutdown onto Betty! The Glacial Prison goes wide, and with Did's quickness, he's buying some time. The Nexus is a focus, and NIP win their third game of summer. But Did, EQ starts firing, the curtains are called. Shot number 3, tags Jan, kills him!
You know? Oh, what? Yeah, I don't know, they're fighting also.
Justice Punch comes down from Betty. Sparkle goes over the wall. He knocks EQ in. Yonen's taken down. That was a great play from Sparkle. The ninjas in pajamas are doing the unthinkable. Where were you when NIP won their first series of summer?
We'll find out who reigns supreme between the Unicorns and the Mysterious Monkeys as we hit the rift for game number 1. Hopping and skipping and throwing those blades out. Roots down. Chachi, they get the hop over. It doesn't matter. And Xerxes leading the charge. Amazing Dreams. Suki all silence. All back to the safety or not of their turret. Down goes one Nexus turret. And down goes Yuki. Well, there's your answer. Goodbye, Dreams. The Unicorns of Love going 1-0 up in the series.
Drag us. Nice. Fucking good.
Trust.
Amazing, fine.
Oh shit. Can they take him out? He is so big, and he's getting it onto Dreams, but Yuki is bigger. A big Baron mistake allows them to turn it around, and we're going to game 3. Cho'Gath is angry. The two-man rupture knocks up. Blade of the Rune King is there, and Kikis should be able to get the finishing blow.
Oh my bad, I wanted
Of the pack, and the Unicorns do right what they do best. Take those fights and run it down mid.
Nice, this guy.
But I just got one thing to say to you, Vedius, and everybody at home. Are you not entertained?